And Liz, it's been a crazy start to the session. And I feel like sometimes I call 5 times asking for information and they are turning it around as quick as possible, which truly, truly appreciate. I know it's difficult, but it's been very helpful both to us as lobbyists as well as our legislative delegation. So wanted to make sure I did that little shout out before we start. We are about a quarter of the way through the session. We've got about 300 bills that have been introduced. Despite the fact that deadlines have passed, we'll have another 300 or 400 bills that will be introduced. So we are in the throes of it. We've got a lot of brand new legislators, and they're coming in with some new ideas and no stakeholding on them. So it's been a challenging session. I can tell you both from the business community's perspective as well as the local government perspective. That said, we have been working on a bunch of bills that have already been introduced and some that we know are on their way. Just an update on the affordable housing discussion that the governor has started that would address maybe local land use zoning. The mayor did come down to the Capitol last week and met with Senate leadership on that and talked a little bit about what Aurora is doing locally and some concerns with some of the rumors that we've heard about potential infringements on local zoning. So there's nothing in writing, no bill yet, but I've got a meeting with the governor's office to talk about it further next week. And I spoke with some of the proponents about it yesterday. It looks like they may be taking a regional approach to that. So trying to group areas together that may have similar interests. And it sounds like what they're going to do is kind of create a threshold whereby, and this may be where the zoning issue comes in, there are some things that must be allowed in these regions. One of the things that's been of discussion is the granny flats, or, creating an accessible, an ADU that would be attached to homes or attached to properties. So more to come on that, but that'll be a big issue, I'm sure, that we'll deal with. In terms of legislation that, do you want me to start going through them, or do you want to go through the bills that we've got on the list?
Well, these ones we still have to take positions on, so you can go on the other ones though.
Okay, happy to do that. Some of the bills that we've talked about in the past that have had hearings, 1061, which was the legislation around alcohol sales, that was in committee 2 days ago. The bill was amended heavily, where the Restaurant Association and the Tavern League are neutral on the bill according to their lobbyists. I think Trevor still has some concerns with the bill. We shared those with CML. So what they were planning to do was just change that licensing fee provision from $100 to $200. I don't think that fixes what Trevor's concerns with the bill. So we'll keep working on that, working with CML, seeing if there's some continued improvements we can make to that bill. The auto theft bill, I know that's one that's of key importance to us. This is the legislation that removes that $2,000 differential. There seems to be a lot of support. I know this council passed a referendum on it, or a resolution on it, I should say. A lot of support for that at the Capitol, so I think that one will move through pretty well. And then we haven't seen, there's been a couple of bills introduced on fentanyl. They haven't really started moving yet. So there hasn't been a lot of discussion in that world, but I know that'll be something that we'll want to talk about when those start to move as well.
Okay. So I'm gonna go to Judge Day.
Okay.
And Judge Day, because you have a time constraint, can you please go over some of your bills?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The data sharing bill is set for hearing on February 22nd of House judiciary. It's the first call for committee, so they'll be accepting testimony. If I have your permission, I'll go down. I've been asked by others to go down to talk about the bill as well. It's a bill that sets forth the task force, sets up a task force to discuss data sharing amongst state courts and municipal courts. I know that there was some initial concern by state judicial that the bill itself may carry some fiscal note to it, a hefty fiscal note to it. Really, I think that there needs to be some clarification, education as to the bill, and that it should not carry an initial fiscal note. In fact, there's language in the bill that says that nobody on the task force will be compensated. So I hope to point that out. This is an issue that's been discussed for a long time between municipal courts and state courts. It's not a new conversation, but to bring people together by legislation in the form of a task force to talk about the important issue of sharing information, sharing data. I hope that people will see the value of it. Bill. So with your permission, I'll go down and I'll be happy to testify about Bill on the 22nd.
Definitely. I mean, I was down there on the 8th, and so I saw someone from CML, and definitely, you definitely need to testify. They were asking me to, but you're the person that needs to testify.
I'll be happy to.
So definitely on that.
February
February
22nd. February 22nd.
Just so council members know, this bill is included in the packet as something to take a position on. It's the kind of third bill down for the actively support position. So if you guys want to go ahead and do a position now, while Judge Day is still here.
Well, first of all, is there any questions from the committee to Judge Day? And then what would you support? What's your position on the bill?
Because this is just a credit task force.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
I support too.
pretty inclusive task force. We spent some time back and forth regarding the size of the task force. We were pretty deliberate and intentional with the size of the task force. We wanted to be inclusive, but we also wanted to be a workable number.
And that's what I wanted to ask you, Judge Day. So, because I heard before, I think everything is okay now, but I heard that judicial had some issues, I guess because of the compensation piece. But I was wondering if there is an issue, I know it has to be an odd number, but if we have to go to that, could that be something that could be advocated? Because I think if that's the real issue, if it comes up again,
Right.
maybe if it has to be an odd number, maybe we can go down on the number of the task force, just to, so that was just something that, I know it's kind of probably been resolved, but just a thought.
100%. I don't think that anybody's, although we've had quite a few discussions as to the size of the task force, and we've, believe it or not, whittled it down to what it is in the
Okay.
in the number in the bill as it is right now. I'm open to any ideas and suggestions that if there is some hesitation about the bill and support of the bill because of the size of the task force, I'm happy to have those conversations.
Okay. And there's just something, I mean, it may be salvaged already, but that's just what I was wondering, because I know the compensation piece was the issue, but I know we have to have an odd number,
Yep.
but just a suggestion as a plan, whatever,
Yeah.
A, B, C, D.
We wanted to make sure
Just
that
to get it-
everybody was at the table. and
Okay.
a good representation at the table.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah. Just as Peggy said, there's bills dropping daily still. 72, Senate Bill 72, which is the motor vehicle theft, has not been calendared yet in Senate Judiciary, so I'm keeping an eye on that. There's a bill that dropped 2 days ago, House Bill 23-1182, which is, the title of the bill is Remote Public Access to Criminal Court Proceedings. This dropped 2 days ago. We're tracking that bill as well, and I'll be happy to bring more information before this committee as this moves along. Really what it is just asking that municipal or any court, it's not just municipal courts, but any court dealing with criminal proceedings have access, virtual access to the proceeding. We already provide virtual access to all of our courts, but some of the initial reaction to this bill is that it's a mandatory requirement if you have the ability to do so. And just because of some things that have happened in the course of us having virtual access to our proceedings that have happened in our court. For example, when a judge enters a sequestration order for witnesses and says you cannot be in the courtroom to listen to other testify, you can't talk about the case except for with the attorneys and you're excused from the court. There was a case that we had 6, 7, 8 months ago to where the judge felt that the person who logged in anonymously to the WebEx broadcast of the trial could have been one of those witnesses. So it would have been in violation of the sequestration order. And so that's one example of what would run afoul of this particular bill. And again, so I'll bring more information before the committee as it comes forward. But I just wanted to throw that out for your edification right now that this bill was just introduced 2 days ago and we do have some issues with it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge Day.
Sure.
I appreciate it. And we'll be hearing from you, I'm sure.
Okay.
So,
Well, with your permission then, I'm sorry that I gotta leave, but I got another meeting in
Oh,
17
definitely.
minutes.
Go save the world, Judge.
yes, go down, save us all, Judge Day. So,
Thanks, appreciate that.
have a good weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, so Liz, we have, do we need to go through the bills or I want to talk to Division Chief? Do you have some bills that you would like to discuss? I see something on here, limit arrest for low-level offenses?
Yeah, we're opposed
Okay,
to that.
It just, I think the chief's point is that why would we continue to limit the resources and the abilities of our officers on that? So
okay, so opposition?
Yes,
Okay,
we are, Mr. Chair.
okay. Did you want to discuss it anymore, or just basically?
Yeah, I mean, I just,
Okay.
exactly what the chief said.
Okay.
I think curtailing our authority even on lower, because some of the times those lower offenses,
Okay,
having the ability to effect an arrest for a multitude of reasons, but when you take that away, it limits our ability to do our job.
okay. Does the, committee have any questions? Okay, do you, support the position?
Yeah, it's
Opposition?
opposed if asked.
Yeah, I do too. I support that position as well. Councilmember Jurinsky? I do. Okay, okay. Okay, and then, move over, slow down stationary vehicle. I met with Representative Lindsay. Seems like to me it's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't see any issues with it yet.
Okay, it just adds to the public safety.
Right.
Okay, okay. So we'll take a position on that bill too. Do you support that bill? I think we already
Yeah, we
did.
did
but-
via email,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
We took an informal position, so
But we
the
need to
council
take a
has to
formal
approve
position.
a
Yeah.
formal position, yeah.
Councilmember Jurinsky? Yeah. Okay, I support. So we support that one. I know we went a little bit out of whack here. So let's go back to Liz and we'll go through these bills.
Great. So we have a number of bills for you guys to look at today, definitely more than we've had in the past. So the first one is now that the child name deletion bill has a bill number, I wanted to make sure you all were aware of that. Obviously, our position recommendation is actively support for this. And I know that the Mayor, Police Chief Acevedo, and Councilmember Lawson will be going to testify on this bill on the 13th, which is this coming Monday. So I guess just, reaffirming the actively support position is the recommendation here.
I support Councilmember
Yep,
Jurinsky.
support.
Okay, yes. Council, yes.
Did you want to talk
I
about the
was-
amendment?
Yep.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay.
Senator Rodriguez is considering carrying an amendment that would give the press association, members of the press, an exemption to the bill, which we've discussed internally that it pretty much guts the intent of the bill. Senator Rodriguez said, well, the issue is that this was actually not published by the press, but it was published by a government entity, the names. And it linked apparently to maybe a Arapahoe County court case.
Yes.
So that's, and he said, this is a First Amendment issue and, you know, talked about that. And I said, well, I think you've got to balance First Amendment issues with safety of children. And so anyway, we went in little circles, didn't get anything resolved. I don't know if he's going to bring the amendment, but certainly want you guys to be aware of that for Monday's hearing. Good news is, we may move up in the calendar, so we may not, have to sit there all night.
Before the gun.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll let you guys know as soon as that, if that order changes, so that you're aware.
So just to kind of like give a little bit more context, what the Press Association is asking for is for the implementation of a good cause amendment to the bill, which would allow the courts in their judgment to release the names of juvenile witnesses or victims to crimes, which is completely defeats the whole purpose of the bill, which is to have those be confidential. One of the big reasons why we think it really guts the bill is just because it's a complete reversal of what the point is, which is to protect our kids. So there's nothing in the bill that stops guardians or the kids themselves from going to the press. So we don't really see why this good cause is necessary. I know police definitely supports this position in having a hard line of what is and is not acceptable. So what had happened at the high school shooting just never happens again. And we just don't have to worry about that happening anymore. We are taking steps to, as we mentioned, kind of have this amendment never come to light, but we do have talking points ready if it does.
Okay, so we do have something that could possibly come up.
Yes.
With this amendment. Which
Possibly.
makes the position possibly a lot different. Maybe, no?
No, I mean, the
We can
recommend.
continue to support,
Yes.
as it was introduced.
Yes.
Okay, as introduced,
Yeah,
okay, I just wanted to make sure.
If
Okay.
it amends, you can change the position, but
Yes.
our goal is to
Okay.
kill that amendment.
Okay.
Yes. So it seems, per our conversations, no one is really that much in support of it or is
Okay.
still confused on what the amendment would do. So we're working with members to clear up that and, really discuss this is
Okay.
not great and we don't support that.
Okay, I just wanted to know what the
Mhm.
gist behind it. Well, if there was, I understand that we're supporting it, but with this amendment.
Then that would
Right.
we would have to
Okay,
revisit
okay.
what happens. But as written, the recommendation is actively support. If that changes, we would have to revisit the positioning.
Okay,
And Liz, so good cause is not even defined, right? So
Yes.
it's a very vague term, what good cause would even look like. And so because of its ambiguity, it would, again, gut the bill. And then do you know the backstory of sort of the release of like what sort of precipitated this with the Hinckley High School shooting?
So
Has
I
that been
do,
brought
I
up?
don't, do you want me to share that or would you
Okay,
like?
right.
to share?
It might be helpful,
Okay.
I think, to understand why it's being introduced.
Yeah, do you want to take the lead on it? Okay, so this is like before my time, so this is kind of like what I found out for this information. So the Sentinel had published an article relating to the incident and what happened. And in that article, they linked to court documents from the 18th Judicial District, which is Arapahoe County Court, not Aurora Municipal Court. I just need to make that clear because there's been some questions. So when those court documents were linked, the documents had the names of the witnesses and victims of the shooting incident in them. Obviously, this caused a lot of grief for these kids because their information was released to the public. They faced harassment at school, and it was just kind of a really horrible situation for these kids to have to go through on top of an already traumatic incident. So that's kind of like where this is coming from and why this bill is being introduced. Obviously put forward from Mayor Kaufman and, the city attorney's office. They've been working very diligently with Senator Fields to kind of make sure that that does not happen ever again for the safety of our children. Does that cover it, or do you think?
Just one question, does that also kind of absolve them of some liability if it's mistakenly given to them? Like criminal justice records where maybe something wasn't redacted and the media then releases it, they can say, well, it was provided to us in this way, so we have no obligation to ensure that that's redacted out of there. Whereas if they receive it and they made a mistake and didn't redact something under this, it seems like they can't release that information because it's a criminal justice record if they know that there's a name and date of birth in there, and they don't redact that information out, they're on the hook for violating that law. So I think for them, for the media, it kind of gets them off the hook of having any culpability in releasing information that's provided to them or checking to ensure that information follows the guidelines of this bill.
That's
So,
probably exactly
Yeah.
what they.
right,
Because
yes. So I think it's very dangerous.
then it's one extra step and they don't like to do anything that makes
Mhm.
work.
Yep.
So yeah, like I mentioned, we're really working hard to make sure this amendment does not move forward. But like we mentioned, if it does, we will have to revisit.
Okay.
But anyway, so the position recommendation is still at this time to actively support the bill as written.
Okay, we'll move to the next one because my colleagues are supports that.
Okay, so the next one is Senate Bill 23-097. So it's the adoption of the motor vehicle offenses recommendation. So this really correlates to Councilmember Zvonek's resolution that you brought forward a couple weeks ago. So basically the bill would increase penalties for auto theft and the theft would no longer be based on the value of the vehicle. So the position recommendation from staff is to actively support.
I support.
And then we had already done House Bill 23-1132, which was the court data sharing aspect. And we also moved forward with the support if asked formal approach for 1123, which was the move or slow down. So the other support if asked position is House Bill 23-1102, alcohol and drug impaired driving enforcement. So under the current law, the Office of Transportation had created this kind of grant program to help give funding to law enforcement for mitigating drunk driving. What this bill would do is expand that program to alcohol and drug prevention programs, as well as ensuring that this program actually receives the funding that it's supposed to. So the reason why we're doing a support if asked is because if the city does try to go after this funding, this could be really beneficial for assisting law enforcement with these programs, should they choose to engage in them.
Division Chief, do you have comments on this that you would like to?
No, I guess I'd like to know how that money would be allocated and how law enforcement would be able to access that money and because that's not very clear. I don't think at this point how we would access that or use that in the prevention aspect, but I think including both alcohol and drugs, because both of those are, significant issues within our community, and the prevention aspect to that's pretty important.
I'll ask.
Mhm.
On the
Yeah,
funding.
how that works, because a lot of those programs are, come through the counties and stuff like that, and how would that work?
Councilmember Zvonek?
Yeah, I think it makes sense it's expanding the definition to include drugs, not just alcohol. But I do think, to your point, understanding how we could benefit from it
Yeah.
beyond that broadening of the definition would be helpful.
And then we can find out more information.
But yes, I think it's makes sense to support.
Councilmember Jurinsky? Okay, I'll support as well.
Great. Okay, so we're moving forward into actively oppose. So there are some pretty interesting bills that have come up on this. So the first one is Senate Bill 111, Public Employees Workplace Protection. So essentially this bill would grant public employees, including ones of municipality in the city, to discuss or express views regarding public employee representation or workplace issues, engage in protected activities, in organized form, join or assist employee organizations, or really just be able to engage politically. The reason why we as staff recommend an actively opposed position is for several reasons. It would remove municipal authority to kind of regulate some of these activities. It would remove the city's ability to make decisions. It interferes with the ability to set terms and conditions of employment. There are no exemptions for speech that disrupts the workplace or would constitute as harassment. And there's no real kind of clear definitions in the bill of what some of these things are. Public employees already have First Amendment rights under kind of the law already. So this kind of limits the city to address adverse employee actions. And then we have George here, who is part of our legal team, to provide some additional background or information on kind of this bill.
George, you want to provide some context?
I guess the best, and I guess where I'll start is the home rule authority. That's a big deal. And when the legislature starts passing or pushing bills that pushed back on that. That's the first stance we're taking against it. I mean, it's putting in, making us follow laws that were, even the state was exempt from. Now it's pushing for local municipalities to also follow those two, the national bill as well as the state bill, the state, I gotta remember the Colorado Labor Peace Act. So and the National Labor Relations Act. So that's why we are proposing that we actively oppose this bill.
Councilmember Jurinsky and Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions?
I don't, and I agree with actively opposing.
Okay, Councilmember Jurinsky, I oppose as well.
Great. So moving into opposed if asked. So the first one is House Bill 23-1118, Fair Work Week Employment Standards. So the bill does do certain requirements for certain types of employers regarding to their working schedules. We had brought this up, I think, previously to this. The bill, from our internal analysis, doesn't appear to apply to the city because it wouldn't be considered a covered entity or covered employer. I'm sorry. The covered employers are those who are primarily in food and beverage or retail establishments. However, CML has been really looking to oppose this bill, and CML is putting forward an amendment for a local government exemption. So our assumption is that there's other municipalities that would be impacted by this legislation. Yes.
Yeah, so I just have to disagree with your stance that this doesn't apply to the city. We were just in a workshop the other day that shows that our tax revenue in this city, I think food and beverage industry might be like the third highest in this city. I think this absolutely affects this city and what it will do to the food and service industry and the businesses that we will lose because of it. I think it has a massive impact.
Okay.
On the city directly, and I think that this committee should actively oppose this, not oppose it fast. I think we should loudly oppose this.
I agree.
Okay, I agree as well. And then Councilmember Jurinsky, you said that when is this bill coming up? Didn't you say you wanted to testify on this bill?
Yeah, well, I mean, you see, they're still working on some amendments and some other things. I'm working with the Tavern League, Stephanie Franson, the lobbyist for the Tavern League is who I'm working for. But we're all kind of organizing and have been making calls to some of the sponsors and some of the other people on the committee before it's heard, so.
Okay.
It's up on Thursday.
Oh, okay.
So instead of this
Sorry.
opposed if asked, this committee takes an active opposed
Okay.
position to this bill.
There is, so there was two questions. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. The second part of kind of like the recommendation was to support CML's amendment for a local government exemption. Would we like to support that as well as actively oppose? Support the amendment and as well as actively oppose the bill.
But Councilmember Jurinsky just said that even with that exemption that CML is proposing, it's still going to impact the city's
Yes.
businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to clarify because we were asked.
Yeah,
That's all.
no.
So actively oppose on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the next bill is,
Can I just, if you are coming down, Councilwoman Jurinsky, let me know and so I can bump you up on the list and make sure we have you in the queue. So you're not sitting there
I'll be on
forever.
Tuesday.
What's
It's
that?
coming Tuesday.
Thursday.
Yeah, it is coming Tuesday. I'm gonna be there
Oh,
also.
okay.
So if you're down there,
Yeah, perfect.
and so then
Yeah.
Thursday.
Text me and I'll come find you.
Okay. And then Councilmember Jurinsky, when you go down there, I know you're gonna be representing, but just say that the city be actively,
Yeah.
this committee.
Do you want me to say anything about this committee? I'm
Well-
going down as a restaurant owner, so I mean, it's up to you guys what
Well,
capacity
these
you want me to
probably
be in.
won't go through to the full council yet anyway, right?
They won't, but by
Okay.
council rule, the FSA are
Yeah, we
gonna
gotta
take
go.
positions on
Yeah,
behalf
we
of
can't
the
take
city,
it.
so
Yeah.
she's
So.
Yeah, oh yeah.
absolutely.
No, I'm going down as a business owner. That's fine.
Councilmember
I
Zvonek.
have a question. Would it make sense then can you do it too? Because I think it would be, I mean, if she's going down, as a business owner and obviously she's a member of council, but I think just an added weight, having you as the chair of this committee to say we're actively opposed,
Yeah,
period.
maybe we go together.
If you can, I mean, that's a suggestion and I don't know what you all think of.
Just let me know.
Yeah, the more the merrier. I mean, it's a full out
Okay.
push on this one.
Oh, they're coming, I don't think they realize what they did with this bill and how upset the business community is. especially the food service industry.
Yeah.
They woke up a beast.
Okay.
A hungry beast.
I guess if, Councilmember Lawson, if you need any talking points or anything, like, I'm available to help assist with that if you need it. Cool, okay, so that's all taken care of. Next bill is Senate Bill 23-053, Restrict Government Non-Disclosure Agreements. So this bill would prohibit the state, including Aurora, and municipalities, from making it a condition of employment that an employee or a prospective employee constitutes a contract or other form of agreement that prohibits, prevents, or restricts employee or prospective employment from disclosing circumstances related to that employment. Staff recommends a opposed ask position, as it would essentially, again, erode home rule authority of the state. And employee conduct rules regarding confidentiality would essentially be unenforceable under this legislation. And then I, again, direct any questions towards George, because he has more knowledge on this than I do.
It's the same issue as the last one. They're
Okay.
going after our home
The
rule
home rule.
authority. And that's really important, the way we do our business. And when they push against that, we strongly oppose that.
Okay. Councilmembers Zvonek and Jurinsky, do you have any questions, and what's your position?
So my general thought is I agree with the concept of the bill, this idea of not requiring or restricting non-disclosure agreements. I understand the home rule aspect of it, and so in some ways, this is where I think in the previous, when we talked about having a local government exemption, I still think we should do it ourselves, but I don't like the idea of the state telling us to do it. But if this was applying to state government, I think we should absolutely support it. I do think that having non-disclosure agreements shouldn't be a part of the public business.
So with that being said, do you support the?
I would say neutral, but neutral unless they amend it to
Yeah.
exempt local governments. How's that?
Okay. I'll support that as well. Can we take neutral, is it mon?
Or monitor, I
Can we
guess,
do the
whatever.
I thought we didn't do neutral.
Monitor.
Monitor.
Okay.
Yeah, that's ours.
Okay, monitors.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine, that's good.
So we'll take a monitor position.
Sorry, I'm just making some notes. Apologize. Okay, and then we had already talked about House Bill 23-1169. And then this one, the last one I have is kind of informational. So it would be House Bill 23-1115, repeal prohibition for local residential rent control. So this was another one that was asked about, I believe, at a previous meeting. So this bill would repeal the limitation that the city would be able to make rent control or rent restrictions. So if this bill passes, the city would now be able to make rent control, or the city would be able to pass rent control ordinances.
Local rent control.
Yes, correct, local rent control ordinances. It's just informational, so we don't have a position recommendation on this. It was noted by staff that this may be challenged in court if it does pass, hence the recommendation.
It's also permissive, right? So.
Yes, it's permissive, so
So
it would allow
you
us
have
to
to enact an ordinance to allow
So
it.
it's kind of an opt-in.
Not mandated,
It's
it's
not
an opt-in.
mandated.
You'd have to pass your own ordinance. You're not required to do so.
Okay. Okay.
and then that is everything I have for you. Position.
Well, thank you. Is there any other questions from the committee about any bills?
No, so on Tuesday, there's a whole bunch of bills coming to committee regarding like DHS, different things. I think there's like 4 or 5. And so there's a bunch of us that'll be there for a while testifying on those.
Gotcha, 1:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, I see.
One thing I'm testifying on is 1:30. The bill that I'm testifying on at 1:30 is directly brought forward because of my son. But there's like 4 or 5.
That you're gonna be testifying on your own? Okay. Okay.
Who's the sponsor, do you remember?
Um,
Your choices are Rose Puglisi. Yeah, oh, great, okay, perfect.
Okay.
First one up.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay. Is there any question?
I have
Councilmember
one,
Zvonek?
back to the non-disclosure. Do we do that in Aurora? Do we
We
require
non-disclosure,
or do you know?
I think we do, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't been directly involved in any of them.
That's fine, I'll ask.
Okay. Is there
I
any other,
can,
No, you're,
I can ask. and
if
get
you
back
would,
to you.
yeah.
okay, is there any other, before we move on this, federal? No. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Peggy. Hi, Lori. You're on mute.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, how about yourself?
I'll begin. I have been working on setting up our meetings for the upcoming DC trip at the end of February, early March. Working to get meetings with our whole delegation, and then also White House Intergovernmental Affairs, DOT, HUD, and then also the Bureau of Juvenile Assistance, the BJA director. And I know you had the opportunity to meet him when you were at NLC. So working on all those, we have Congressman Crow scheduled right now, but waiting to hear back. I've heard back from everyone, they're just working through their dates. So I'm beginning to send the calendar invites to Liz as I get them. Second, right as you saw, this president gave the State of the Union this past Tuesday. The House is trying to work on its appropriations guidelines. They met for the very first time on Wednesday. I have not heard from the senators or House or Congressman Crow yet on their guidelines for appropriations, but I'm hoping to hear over the next couple of weeks for them. And then Liz has assembled a group that they've been talking about possible earmark projects or otherwise known as community designated spending. And once we get those projects together, we'll prioritize them and share them with you as well. There have been a FAA authorization, sorry. The Senate and House committees held their very first hearings to kick off consideration of the FAA reauthorization bill, which does expire this year. This is one bill they're hoping to get done this Congress. It usually goes through on a bipartisan basis. Right now, the senators and the congressmen are asking for ideas for recommendations on what to put in the FAA reauthorization bill. So Liz is working on that as well. There have been a number of grant opportunities that were announced over the past couple of weeks. First is the DOJ BJA program. There are two, one for body-worn cameras and another one for a national sexual assault kit. There also is one at DOT. That's a new program called Protect. And this is to help deal with extreme weather events, including hurricanes, snow, drought, flooding. And I've shared that with the, your public works team. And it's a brand new program, so I know they're looking at it to see if they're interested in it. In addition, the White House on Monday released its calendar for all the Inflation Reduction Act and IIJA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill grant programs, and gave an estimated timeline for when they're going to be announced, when the NOFOs are going to come out. So I've sent that over to your staff too, which will make it easier, I think, for y'all to start planning on which grants you want to apply for. And then lastly, the EPA and DOE are starting to ask for recommendations as they're implementing the Inflation Reduction Act programs. And one they asked for yesterday is the new programs for environmental justice. They included $4 billion for various grant programs. So they put out a request for information, RFI, yesterday that I've shared with your staff. And then last week, they put out a grant opportunity for local governments to partner with community organizations to find best practices to support those communities that are disproportionately affected by greenhouse gas emissions and pollution. And so that's another grant opportunity I have sent over to your staff. The House is going to be in recess for the next 2 weeks. The Senate's going to be in for 1 week before they recess for President's Day, and they're going to spend next week doing nominations. Any questions?
Is there any questions from the committee?
I have one, Lori, well, maybe two. So the first is, I know on our first meeting, we talked about the federal bill that was introduced last session. I don't know if it's been reintroduced, dealing with housing first. I actually had a call recently with Hancock's team in Denver, and they're becoming more interested in this idea. Not all of them are sold on his team, but I'd say a bigger portion of them, and I think he's moving that direction. So I just curious, is there any new legislation? The member who introduced it, I'm trying to remember, somebody from Kentucky, last name started, I don't remember now. But anyway, I think they called it Housing First Plus or something.
Right.
But if you could let us know if there's anything on that has been reintroduced or that we can follow, that would be helpful. The second thing on grants, with all of the, trying to move us to green, I actually was in a conversation recently where there is opportunities to, I guess, with fire departments to use chainsaws that are electric now and have the power to actually do what they need them to do, and as opposed to using the gas ones. And so if there are ways that we can get grants for our fire department to use to make that transition, and I don't know that there is, maybe there's nothing that exists like this, but it just came to my mind as we were talking about it. Maybe there's even equipment that the police department uses that's gas operated. That now the challenge in the past has been the power, right? It's electric, that it wasn't strong enough, but apparently there are chainsaws that do it, and it's actually a safety issue because they said that they flood them a lot, the chainsaws. And so if we could make that transition and there was some dollars, federal dollars available through one of these green grants that we could get for them, I'd love to figure out if we could apply for one.
So there actually was a grant application opportunity yesterday. It was actually to hire additional firefighters. There's another program called Assistance for Firefighters. It comes out on an annual basis. So let me see if that program that already exists happens to allow equipment like this. But as well, we can look into some of the EPA programs for this as well. And then Roberto and Liz, there's an Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant Program. It's one of the only programs in IIJA that y'all got directly. It is for more energy efficient programs. So perhaps that could be used if y'all are interested in pursuing that.
What department is that block grant out of?
Department of Energy, and I can't, it'd either probably be sustainability, public works.
Okay.
Or the group is helping to make city equipment, city buildings more energy efficient.
Okay.
I'll resend it over to you. The applications are due in like late April, but you were notified in January how much you're going to get. You just now have to submit a plan for how you're going to spend it. So let me send it over to you right now.
And Lori, Councilmember Jurinsky, do you have a question for me? I don't. Okay, and then Lori, I just had a question because I was on the National Public Safety Partnership meeting yesterday, and they were talking of something about the Biden-Harris Community Intervention program. It was something where I guess there was some grants on there. You were on there with me. They were talking about that program, or it was something like that. The Biden-Harris Community Intervention, and it's for neighborhoods. It's something like a public safety.
It's a Department of Transportation one like this. Let me look it up for you. Let me see if I can find it.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
It was Community Violence Intervention,
Oh, okay.
CVI.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
Thank you, Jessica.
That'd be great to get some more information.
Okay, I'm gonna track it down for you.
Thank you, Jessica. I had it written down wrong. So, yeah, if we
And,
can get some information on that, that would be great.
And I was gonna say the Housing Plus Act has not yet been introduced this Congress. I just checked. I'll
Okay.
track it down.
Congressman Crow wants to do it, that'd be great. Although I don't think he's on a committee of reference, so probably not. That's not correct.
Can I just ask, Lori, for our trip, based on Councilmember Zvonek's request and whoever we meet at HUD, can we include whoever would have some purview in that area in terms of that kind of program for the request for the officials that we're meeting with?
Yes.
It's in our federal priorities, but if we can speak to whoever's in that program with authority, I know it's headquarters and HUD's a big group, so getting the right person there in terms of that ask would be appreciated.
Is there somebody from our delegation that sits on a committee of reference for housing?
On the Senate banking on the Senate side, and then on the House side, it is not under. No, we don't have a member who's on that committee.
So I don't think so. Okay.
There's nothing else? Then thank you, Lori. I guess we'll be seeing you in a little bit. In a
Yeah,
couple
excited,
weeks.
yes. Looking forward to seeing all y'all in person finally.
Thank you. Okay, is Kathy here for the water update? Hi, Kathy.
Hi, everybody. Mine will be very quick. I've got 3 items. The first one's a clarification and possibly an approval. House Bill 1123, I heard you talk about that earlier for move over or slow down for stationary vehicles. We did review that. We like the bill, put it down at support if asked, and knew that we might move it to actively support and just wanted to match the city's position on that. Is that one in actively support?
No, we
Yes.
had a support if asked.
Support of ask, yeah.
Support if asked, okay, we'll keep that one then at support if asked. Then informational only, our state update, we're tracking about 23 bills right now, all are monitor or support if asked. We're anticipating 3 draft bills to be introduced soon, one on stream restoration water rights administration, another on water quality fees, and another one on non-flushable wipes labeling, but those just aren't ready to review yet. And then for a quick federal update informational only item, we are working with Lori Hettinger on our DC trip planning, and I should be going out to DC the week of April 17th and may have some visits with representatives or agency offices. And then Marshall Brown is anticipating making a trip the week of May 15th. And again, working with Lori Hettinger on any visits to representative and agency offices. And with that, take any questions.
Questions from the committee? None? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any miscellaneous matters for consideration? Councilmember Dunn, Councilmember Jurinsky? Okay, our next meeting is February 24th. We will be doing that one. Virtual. So thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. That's it. We're adjourned.
Very efficient person.
Just a reminder, if you guys,